Okay, so back with another draft recap. Philadelphia Eagles edition. This was an interesting draft. So, they traded up to get Devonta Smith. And listen, I've talked about how I don't love drafting receivers early in the first round because I think that they're a bit overvalued there, just given the difficulty of evaluating wide receivers. However, I do like Devonta Smith a lot, and I understand the logic of this because basically most people saw it as there were three great receivers and two great corners in this draft with Surtain, Horn, and then the other two were Jalen Waddle and blanking on Jamar Chase. So Devonta Smith being the fifth guy. Four of them were off the board. I think Philadelphia really wanted one of those five guys. So with only one left, they said, we'll trade up. We'll give an asset to our division rival, the Dallas Cowboys. And I think that there's real logic just because of, they wanted a receiver. They desperately needed a receiver. There's kind of a reunion with Jalen Hurts. And, I think the size issues are overblown. I think he'll be a good NFL player. Again, I just think, could you have gotten a good receiver in the second round as well? Sure. But at the same time, really what they needed was corner and receiver. And I feel like there weren't any other guys at this point that were worth a top 10 pick. So I don't hate the pick, even though typically I don't typically like wide receivers that early. I totally understand this one. Then in the second, Philadelphia got Landon Dickerson. And listen, I know that there's sort of some other positions that maybe they could have used. I know that they wanted corner and they end up with center, but at the same time, Landon Dickerson's really good. I know he has the ACL injuries, but at the same time, like, how often have we seen someone who has a pre-draft injury then end up sucking because of the pre-draft injury? It happens, but it's rare. And I think that the chances are Landon Dickerson is going to be a really good center. He could be a Pro Bowl caliber center or guard, whatever you want him to do. It'll be interesting to see exactly what they have him do. I think that he's a really dominant player, and I love this value. He's a first-round talent they got in the second. Big fan of this pick. In the third, they go with Milton Williams. So again, still not addressing the corner position here, but at the same time, they like to have a lot of guys who can play the defensive line. And, listen, they have Fletcher Cox, they have Javon Hargrave. Williams is a bit interesting. He's a bit undersized at 6'3", 284 pounds, but I think that one of the things they like about him is that he can kind of play anywhere on the line, and they love to keep their guys fresh. So getting another body in there, I understand the logic behind because that's what Philly does. And, they then in the fourth, they got Zach or Zeke, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it, McPherson, who's a corner. They finally get their corner there. I'm a bit concerned about his size. He barely broke 4.5 in his pro day, which means he does not break 4.5 in real time. So that's kind of an issue. And he's a bit undersized as well, as he's 5'10". So sort of a smaller, not that fast corner. They must like other traits about him, but typically those guys don't tend to last in the NFL. At the same time, though, it's a position of need. So I understand going here and getting him. And also in the fifth round, they got Kenneth Gainwell, who's someone I'm a big fan of, actually. I had him in my top 5 running backs list. I think I might have had him at number 3. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's really good. He's kind of that back where there's probably better pure rushers in the NFL than him, but he can do everything. He can catch, he can block very well. He's just kind of a do-it-all style back, which that's what I want in a halfback. I don't want a guy who's going to be a great runner, but then will cause my quarterback to fumble a football because he whiffed on a block. Gainwell's not going to do that to you. So that's kind of what I like. And honestly, he could end up being a starter. He could end up being a day one starter. So in the fifth round, that's great value. Big fan of this selection. So with their first 2 picks in the sixth round, and they had more than 2, they get defensive line here. And again, this makes some sense. First, you get Marlon Tuipulotu, and then you get Teron Jackson. So getting a couple guys, again, they want to have fresh bodies in there. If you do want to run a lot of rotational guys, not make a couple players have to play 1,000 snaps unless you really like those players, then getting some guys that can sort of take some reps, it makes sense. Just getting more bodies in the room. Again, if this is a different team, maybe it's a bit head scratching, but given that it's Philadelphia, it makes total sense. So then with their final 2 picks, they got a couple of interesting statistical guys. And typically I don't care about stats because they're pretty irrelevant, because there's just, there's a big difference between being a good college player and a good NFL player. But Jacoby Stevens, he led LSU in tackles last year as a safety. So that's kind of interesting. Like, hey, there's something there. But at the same time, they drafted him as linebacker. So I do kind of wonder, how exactly he's going to be used. If we're being honest, they could probably use sort of this versatile guy. Maybe it's just a depth piece of, hey, if we need a linebacker, we can have him come in. If we need a safety, we can have him come in. He's at 6'1", 212, so a little bit on the smaller side for a linebacker. Also runs a 4.58, which is a pretty good 40 if you're going to be a linebacker. Even a safety, you can deal with that. So probably just a depth piece that can be a little versatile. And kind of what I always say with these late round picks, if you know you're going to be a late round pick and you want to make an NFL roster, find a way to play multiple different positions, because then teams are going to be more likely to draft you, since, if you're just supposed to be a depth guy, it's nice that you only need one guy on the roster that could be either a safety or a linebacker if there's injuries, instead of having to use two guys for that. And then I got Patrick Johnson, who's an edge rusher out of Tulane. He's another statistical guy because he had 10 sacks in 2018, which tied for second in the FBS. So kind of interesting, I guess. Again, I don't really care about stats too much, but it seems like he was supposed to be a 3-4 outside linebacker who ends up becoming they're in a 4-3 scheme now. So I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with him. But again, maybe just taking a flyer on someone they like. Maybe they think he'll play good special teams. I don't know. Once you get to these later round picks, it kind of becomes a bit of a crapshoot. But I like to still, read it and sort of see the logic behind what they're doing, because sometimes those picks can make a difference. So yeah, I mean, my favorite pick of this draft was round 2. I know people wanted to see them go corner, but you can't just draft a corner because you want a corner. And I don't know exactly if that would have been totally smart to do. I mean, Tyson Campbell went just before, and Eric Stokes had already gone. So I think that the couple of good corners that would have fit that scheme that were left have already left now. So I'm not sure if you should reach on a corner when you can get an awesome offensive lineman. I don't hate that move. And again, number 10, Devonta Smith, not what I would have done, but he's probably going to be awesome. So he's a great player. Even if you would have rather gone a different direction, honestly, I probably would have still gone wide receiver there, because I kind of get it. It's just, you need a receiver. They needed a receiver. Last year, it was a mess. They need someone who can get open. Smith can get open. Help out your quarterback and Jalen Hurts. I understand it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this draft. Let me know what you guys thought on the Philadelphia Eagles draft. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.